The Austrians were a gentle, slow-moving aquatic race, valued once for their diplomacy, now abandoned by every major galactic power. Their weakness made them unworthy of protection in the eyes of the Galactic Council. All except humanity. Humans not only kept their alliance but strengthened it, even as it drew the attention of the ruthless Parsuk. Ambassador Imad of the Austrians arrives at a remote human military station to discover the truth. Why had this fierce, unpredictable species chosen to stand beside a people who could not defend themselves? But when a sudden Parsuk assault throws the station into chaos, Imad will witness firsthand the terrifying discipline, cunning, and resolve that makes humanity the last line between his people and extinction. Alongside the soldiers, he will discover that strength comes in many forms, and some are hidden until the moment they're needed most. The airlock hissed, and Imad's environmental suit flexed to balance the station's dry atmosphere against his moist, sensitive skin. Even through the helmet's filtered optics, the human station seemed sharp. Straight corridors of steel and reinforced bulkheads. Every surface clean, functional, and angular. Nothing like the soft, curved walls of home. He reminded himself to keep his posture dignified, back straight within the suit's supportive frame, manipulators tucked neatly. This was not a casual visit. He was here on a mission from the Austrian Council, to answer the question haunting his people: why had humanity stayed when all others left? The inner door opened, and two figures stood waiting. The first, Captain Lucas, wore the crisp uniform of the human space force, his posture rigid, every movement precise. The second, Ambassador Rello, had softer clothing but the same focused presence. "Welcome to Delta 7, Rello said, smiling, a gesture Imad's instinct still read as a threat, though his studies told him it was not. "I trust your journey was comfortable." "My thanks for your accommodations," Imad replied, his translator reshaping his chemical-based speech into the rolling sounds of human standard. Lucas gestured down the corridor. "Your environmental needs were easy enough to manage. Easier than the water-breathing Kielari we hosted last month." A flicker of surprise passed through Imad. Such adaptations would take months of discussion among Austrians. Here, it seemed routine. They began walking. Imad noted how both men unconsciously adjusted their pace to match his slower glide. The gesture was subtle but unmistakable, a small courtesy he rarely saw from other species. The corridors were alive with motion. Crew members passed without staring at the alien among them, their eyes fixed on datapads or speaking into comms. Somewhere far away, he felt faint vibrations through the walls, steady, rhythmic, like machinery breathing. The briefing room was a mix of hard military lines and surprising care. Lighting was softened to a spectrum easy on his light-sensitive eyes. A cradle, built precisely for Austrian physiology, waited at the center. He settled into it, the suit linking to the cradle's systems. Lucas noticed his antenna twitch. "If you're not too tired, I'd like to combine our security briefing with a tour of our training center. There's something you should see." Rello raised an eyebrow at the deviation from protocol, but Imad found himself curious. "I would appreciate that, Captain." They moved deeper into the station, past checkpoints that scanned Lucas instantly. Conversations drifted from open doorways. "Third time this month the Parsug have probed our borders," one officer said. "They're testing us." Rello glanced at Imad. "They've been aggressive toward Austrian space as well." "You felt their pressure." Imad's body shifted uneasily within his suit. "Our defenses could not stand against them alone." "That's why you're here," Lucas said. "And why we prepare." The training center was unlike anything Imad expected. Where other species preferred sleek holographic war rooms, this space was tangible, solid, banks of physical controls, reinforced simulation pods, live combat ranges. Pilots trained with dangerous speed, their bodies and machines moving as one. "We integrate humans directly into the fight," Lucas said. "AI helps. But instincts win battles." From a locked cabinet, he drew a weapon, an ancient-style projectile rifle. "Would you like to hold it?" Imad hesitated. Handling weapons was not in the Austrian diplomatic code, but something in Lucas's expression made refusal seem wrong. He accepted it, surprised by the weight and balance. You maintain this manually, Imad observed. Every soldier does, Lucas said. Technology fails. This doesn't. Rello leaned closer. Our choice to keep the Austrian alliance is not just strategy, Ambassador. It's philosophy. Before Imad could ask what he meant, the lights in the room shifted to deep red. A klaxon wailed, loud and urgent. Lucas's voice snapped into command mode. Status. Static, then a voice over comms, multiple contacts. Shields failing. Persug signatures confirmed. We are under attack. The deck shook violently. Imad's suit stabilized him, but the sudden, alien energy patterns vibrating through the station told him this was no drill. Command center, Lucas said, already moving. Rello followed without hesitation. Imad forced his locomotion systems to keep pace. The orderly corridors were gone. Emergency lights painted them in flashing shadows. Crew members rushed past, voices clipped and precise. They reached a pressure door that refused to open under Lucas's palm scan. He ripped open a manual access panel. Rello, help me with the override. The diplomat didn't hesitate. Seeing such familiarity with emergency systems in a supposed non-combatant stirred new questions in Imad's mind. The door groaned open into a smoke-hazed corridor. Injured crew were being helped toward medics, movements urgent but controlled. How did they get past your early warning systems? Rello demanded. They used our own sensor tricks against us, Lucas said grimly. Another blast rocked the deck. Through a viewport, Imad saw them, the jagged silhouettes of Persug warships, energy lances striking the station's shields. This is a full assault, Imad breathed. Not a raid. Then we'll treat it like one, Lucas replied. The command center doors opened to chaos, but controlled chaos. Tactical displays showed damage reports and enemy formations. Officers moved in tight, efficient patterns, voices calm despite the storm outside. Lucas glanced at Imad once, voice steady. Pay attention. You're about to see why we stand with your people. He turned to his crew. Theta 7 Battle Protocol. They expect a retreat, let's make them regret it. The command center pulsed with activity, a hive of human precision under pressure. Tactical officers relayed numbers in sharp bursts. Engineers rerouted power around damaged systems with the calm of surgeons. The air thrummed with the deep hum of reactor strain and the faint vibration of maneuvering thrusters firing in short, deliberate bursts. Lucas stood in the center, the station's nerve core flowing through him. Every display fed him data, the shifting red clusters of enemy formations, the jagged green outlines of defensive positions, the yellow lines representing power flow and shield coverage. They're moving in a three-pronged advance, a tactical officer called. Heavy cruisers leading each formation. Rello leaned over the central table. Classic encirclement pattern. They want to trap us. Lucas shook his head. No. Look at their velocity vectors. They're hurting us. Positioning for something else. Imad's antenna twitched, translating the subtle vibrations from the deck into his own nervous signals. The Persug's aggressive energy pulses pounded against the shields. His species would already be retreating, buying time with drones and automated systems while the living fled. But here, the humans, waited. They think we'll run, Lucas said suddenly, a grin pulling at the edges of his mouth. It wasn't a pleasant expression, it was sharp, predatory. They're setting up to cut off the route they think we'll take. Which means? Rello asked, already sensing the answer. Lucas's eyes narrowed. Which means we don't take it. Helm, full power to maneuvering thrusters. Make us look like we're struggling to hold position. Weapons, charge all batteries, but keep them powered down. I want them to think we're more damaged than we are. A ripple of understanding moved through the crew. Orders flowed like water from station to station, carrying the deception forward. Displays dimmed certain weapon icons to simulate offline status. Shield readouts flickered to mimic instability. To Imad, the coordinated falsehood felt strange, almost dishonest, but the humans embraced it with confidence. He forced himself to focus on the data screens, though much of it was alien to him. Still, he could read one thing clearly: the enemy was closing in, believing the humans were bleeding. The deck trembled under another hit. A warning flashed, port shield at 63%. Hold position, Lucas ordered, voice steady. Let them commit. They're accelerating, Rello said, eyes on the tactical display. All squadrons are closing to weapons range. Not yet, Lucas murmured, gaze locked on the red shapes. His voice dropped to a tense whisper meant only for himself, though the bridge still heard, wait for it. Imad's skin shifted to a mottled pattern of instinctive dread. His inner senses screamed for retreat, for safety. But the humans didn't move. They waited, calm, deliberate, predators coiling for the strike. Now, Lucas snapped. His hand slammed the command interface. All batteries, full power. Helm, emergency thrust to port. Hit their center formation before they can react. The station came alive in an instant. Energy surged through systems Imad had been told were crippled. Weapon arrays lit the void, spitting brilliant streaks into the flank of the lead pursuit cruiser. The force of the blast vibrated through the deck, a satisfying, solid thump that even Imad's instincts recognized as a blow well struck. Direct hits on their lead ship, a gunner reported. Shields collapsing. The enemy formation shuddered, breaking apart as their center reeled. Ships scrambled, their traps snapping closed on empty space. They expected us to run, Lucas said, satisfaction in his tone. Instead, we tore out their teeth. Imad stared at the tactical display, watching the red icons scatter. The human maneuver had been reckless, aggressive, everything Austrians avoided. But it worked. It worked. Enemy vessels retreating to outer range, tactical confirmed. Covering their withdrawal with 2 damaged cruisers. Lucas didn't relax. Helm, maintain pursuit range. Don't overextend. Tactical, keep batteries hot. Engineering, damage report. The reply came in brisk, clipped tones. 17 injured, 3 critical. Section 7 took structural damage. Fire suppression engaged, but debris is blocking medical access. Rello, Lucas said without hesitation, you know the station layout. Get to Section 7. Take whoever you need. Imad surprised himself by speaking up. I will assist. Both men looked at him, measuring. Then Lucas nodded once. Go. An ambassador, his eyes locked on Imad's, steady and unflinching. Keep your head down. This isn't over. The journey to Section 7 was a crash course in human crisis response. The corridors were dim under emergency lighting, and the deck plates trembled with the thud of long-range fire. Crew members moved with urgency but no panic, dodging around fallen beams and scorched panels. Imad's environmental suit detected smoke, carbonized metals and synthetics, mixed with the coppery tang of human blood. His manipulator arms flexed reflexively, unsure how to help in such destruction. They found Section 7 sealed under emergency bulkheads. Rello keyed in his diplomatic override, and the doors groaned open to reveal chaos. The compartment was half collapsed, the floor sloping under warped plating. Emergency crews worked among debris, pulling injured out from under twisted beams. Sparks spat from ruptured conduits, showering the air with flashes of light. A medic spotted them immediately. We've got compression injuries here. I need steady pressure until I get the regenerator online. Imad moved before thinking. His manipulators extended, pressing precisely against a wounded engineer's leg. His species evolved to sense minute changes in pressure. Here, that gift served as a perfect substitute for human hands. Good, don't move, the medic said, already working on sealing another wound. You hold better than half my assistants. For the next 20 minutes, Imad worked in the wreckage, pressing wounds, clearing light debris, holding stabilization frames while humans welded damaged supports. His fear dimmed beneath the focus of helping. At last, Rello crouched beside him. You're doing well. Better than well. Imad's skin flushed with embarrassment. I am only built for this type of precision. It is nothing special. It's exactly special, Rello said. And now you see why your people matter to us. Before Imad could answer, the comms crackled. Lucas's voice came through, edged but steady. Enemies gone to full retreat. Maintain readiness, but damage control takes priority. All teams, stabilize and regroup. The medic finally took over from Imad, sealing the wound with a hiss of regenerator foam. You're done here, Ambassador. Go get some rest. But rest was the last thing on his mind. He had seen, in the space of an hour, more of humanity's nature than in all his diplomatic briefings. They fought like predators, planned like strategists, and when the battle was done, they healed their own without hesitation. And for the first time since the Galactic Council's abandonment, he thought, maybe his people had been wrong to fear humans quite so much. The sounds of battle faded into a low, constant hum. Damage control teams moved through the station, sealing ruptures, clearing debris, and shoring up structural weaknesses. The vibration under the deck had changed, no longer the sharp pulse of weapons fire, but the steady rhythm of repair machinery. Imad followed Rello back toward the command sectors. The corridors bore fresh scars, scorch marks, warped bulkheads, shattered lighting panels. Human crew members passed them carrying tool kits, portable generators, crates of replacement parts. Many were bloodied or bruised, but none slowed. What now? Imad asked, his translator reshaping the chemical tones into human speech. Now we fix what's broken, Rello said simply. And we do it fast, because the Persug might come back. The words were delivered with the same calm certainty as before the battle. It was not bravado, Imad realized, but preparation. These people never seemed to stop moving forward. The medical bay was overflowing. Beds were lined against the walls, the most critical cases surrounded by a web of monitors and 4 lines. Medics moved briskly between patients, their expressions focused, their voices quiet but firm. When Imad stepped inside, a nurse immediately thrust a tray of bandages and sealants into his manipulators. If you can walk, you can work. Help with dressings in corridor triage. There was no hesitation in her tone. She didn't ask if he wanted to help, she assumed he would. Rello leaned toward him. Go. You've already shown you can do this. And so he did. The triage area was filled with the walking wounded, men and women sitting against the bulkhead with burns, cuts, and splinter injuries. Imad's manipulator arms were delicate enough to remove shrapnel without tearing flesh, his sense for pressure letting him clean and seal wounds quickly. He moved from patient to patient, learning human physiology as he went. The scent of blood was strong, but no longer overwhelming. Instead, it anchored him. Here, in this space, he was not a weak representative of a weak species. He was useful. A young engineer with a bandaged shoulder gave him a faint smile. You Austrians are good at this. Steady hands. We evolved for gentle work, Imad replied. Tending delicate marine gardens, building fragile coral homes. The engineer nodded. And here you are, doing battlefield medicine. Not bad for coral builders. It was meant as a compliment, and Imad found it unexpectedly warming. By the time Lucas entered the medbay, the triage area was calmer. Most patients were stable, the worst injuries transferred to surgery. He scanned the scene quickly, his eyes sharp but not cold, and spotted Imad working beside a medic. Status, he asked. All critical cases stabilized, the medic reported. Your Austrian friend here saved us hours of work. Those manipulators are better than a surgical clamp. Lucas nodded once. Good. We'll remember that. He turned to Rello. Command wants a full debrief. But first, his gaze returned to Imad. You've seen us fight. You've seen us bleed. Now you'll see why we keep fighting at all. They left the med bay and crossed into the station's central concourse. The area had been cleared of non-essential personnel, replaced by makeshift work zones. Technicians patched damaged comm relays. Engineers calibrated portable shield emitters to protect vulnerable sections. And everywhere, humans worked in pairs or small teams. No one was idle. No one waited for orders they could anticipate. Imad paused to watch two crew members, one with a splinted arm, restringing a power cable along the ceiling. The injured man climbed without complaint, moving with the easy competence of someone who'd done this countless times before. Lucas followed Imad's gaze. Discipline doesn't vanish when we take hits. If anything, it gets sharper. That's the only way you survive in space. You mean, aggression? Imad asked. Not just that, Lucas said. Aggression wins you moments. Discipline wins you wars. In the briefing room again, the mood was different than earlier. The lights were dimmer, the air heavier with the scent of burned circuits. But the cradle designed for Austrian physiology was still there, unchanged, waiting for him. Imad lowered himself into it slowly. When I came here, he began, I thought the question was about military value. Why humans kept our alliance when others saw no use for us. And now? Rello asked. Now I see, you don't measure value the same way the Council does. Rello smiled faintly. The Council sees strength only in force projection, numbers of ships, weapon yield, combat records. We see it in fit. In how pieces work together. In how strengths cover weaknesses. Lucas leaned forward. The Persug think they can scare us into abandoning allies. That's how they control their borders. But you're under our protection. That's not just about protecting you, it's about protecting us. The moment we start cutting allies loose, we become like the Council. And we stop being human. The words carried weight beyond their sound. Imad felt them resonate, like a low harmonic through his suit. A calm alert cut through the room. Damage control reports all critical systems restored to minimal function. Shield grid back online at 72%. Weapons recharged to standby levels. Engineering estimates full repairs within 12 hours. Good, Lucas said. We'll need readiness in case they come back. He looked to Imad. Ambassador, I want you to stay here until the station's secure. Not as a guest. As part of the crew. We'll find work you can do. The offer struck Imad as something more than hospitality, it was trust. And in that moment, he realized he would accept without hesitation. Hours later, the hum of the station felt different to him. Less like a foreign heartbeat and more like a rhythm he could match. He walked, glided, through the corridors without the same inward flinch at every vibration. Crew members greeted him with nods, not stares. In the observation deck, he paused before a broad viewport. The stars outside seemed sharper now. He could still see distant glimmers where wreckage drifted from the Persug retreat. Rello joined him quietly. They'll be back, the ambassador said. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next year. But they'll be back. I believe you, Imad replied. His skin shifted to deep, steady tones of resolve. And when they return, I will not hide behind others. Rello's eyes crinkled. Then you've learned the first truth about standing with humans. It's not about never being afraid. It's about deciding what's worth facing that fear for. They stood in silence after that, two allies looking out at the void, both knowing the fight wasn't over, but also knowing they would face it together. The alarm came without warning. No warm-up tones, no drills, just the raw, urgent howl of a red alert. Imad's skin flushed with instinctive dread as the deck vibrated beneath him. The hum of the repaired system shifted to a higher, strained pitch. Crew members in the corridor dropped whatever they were doing and moved fast, heading for posts. Rello's voice was steady but quick. "Command center. Now." They reached the lift as a voice came through the station-wide comms, multiple new contacts emerging from FTL, 3 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers, unknown escort craft. Persug transponder signals confirmed. Lucas met them at the command center entrance, already in combat posture. They didn't come back to probe this time. They're bringing heavier guns. Tactical displays confirmed it, the red icons closing in were larger, their movement tighter, more deliberate. This wasn't the reckless strike of the earlier assault. This was a fleet prepared to crush. "Why so soon?" Rello asked. "They want to hit us before we finish repairs," Lucas said. "Force us into a corner while we're still bleeding." He turned to the room. "All stations, Theta 8 protocol. Prepare fallback positions but keep the enemy believing we'll hold here." Imad listened closely. This Theta 8 was different from the previous battle plan. The humans were preparing for the possibility of abandoning part of the station, yet without showing weakness. The Persug ships didn't waste time. Energy lances cut through the black, slamming into the outer shield grid. The impact thrummed deep in the deck plating. "Shields holding at 69%, Tactical reported." Lucas's voice was sharp. "Gunners, target their destroyers first. We take away their teeth before we deal with the big ones." Weapons fire answered immediately, streams of plasma and kinetic rounds streaked toward the smaller enemy craft. 2 lit up in brilliant bursts, scattering molten fragments into the void. But the Persug retaliated with coordinated strikes. The station shuddered under the impact, emergency lights flickering. "Forward shield generator offline," engineering called. "Rerouting power from auxiliary grid." Rello moved to communications. "Sending distress to nearby patrols, but the closest help is 40 minutes out." Lucas didn't slow. "Then we last 40 minutes. A sudden jolt threw Imad against his cradle. His antenna retracted involuntarily under the shock. "Hit on Section 3, Tactical called. Hull breach, emergency doors sealed." "Casualties?" Lucas demanded. "Unknown. Internal sensors are damaged in that sector." Rello's eyes darted to Imad. "You can sense vibrations through bulkheads, yes? Even subtle ones?" "Yes," Imad said cautiously. "Then you can tell if there's movement behind a sealed section." Lucas seized on the idea instantly. "You're with damage control. Find out if anyone's alive in Section 3. If they are, we'll cut them out." The words hit Imad like a physical weight. Going into a damaged sector during a battle was dangerous enough for humans, but for an Austrian in a fragile environmental suit? Still, he found himself nodding. Understood. The corridors to Section 3 were darker, lit only by the blue strips of emergency power. The air smelled of scorched metal and insulation. Imad moved with 2 damage control crew, their toolkits clanging faintly against the deck. At the sealed bulkhead, he pressed his antenna casings to the cold metal. Slowly, he extended them, filtering out the hum of the station systems. There, faint, irregular vibrations. "Movement," he said. 2 sources. "Weak." "That's enough," one crewman replied, already unpacking the plasma cutter. The work was fast but precise. Humans knew how to move under pressure. The moment the gap was wide enough, 2 soot-covered crew members were pulled through. One was barely conscious. "They'd have suffocated in minutes," the medic said. "Let's move." Imad stayed close on the way back, his manipulators steadying the injured. The sight of the human crew rallying around their rescued comrades lodged in his mind. This was what holding the line meant to them, not just holding space, but holding each other. When they returned to the command center, the tactical display had changed. One enemy cruiser was listing, venting gas into space, but the remaining two pressed forward with their destroyer escort. Lucas didn't glance away from the display. "Good work, Ambassador. Now take a seat, you're going to want to see this." On the display, a section of the station's outer hull opened, revealing something Imad hadn't noticed before, a cluster of small, heavily armed gunboats. "They'll expect us to keep everything inside the station," Lucas said. "Instead, we hit them from the flanks." The gunboats launched, engines flaring bright as they darted into the fight. The pursuit formation faltered, splitting attention between the station and the sudden new threat. "Destroyer 3 disabled," Tactical reported. "Our gunboats are forcing them to split fire." For a moment, the momentum shifted. But then one of the cruisers fired a massive pulse weapon. A section of the station went dark on the display. "Power relays to Section 9 destroyed," engineering called. "Shields down in that sector. Rotate the station to shield the weak point." Lucas barked. The station groaned audibly as maneuvering thrusters fired in sequence, rolling the structure in space. The motion bought precious seconds, but the pursuit pressed harder, sensing vulnerability. An alarm screamed from the tactical console. "Multiple boarding craft detected. They're coming in under the shield gap." Lucas's voice dropped into the hard tone Imad had learned meant there was no room for hesitation. "Seal all inner bulkheads. Security teams to intercept. Rello, keep comms open with all sectors." He turned to Imad. "You're not armed. Stay here." But the moment the first boarding alarm sounded in the corridors, Imad felt something strange. His fear response spiked, yes, but underneath it was something sharper. A refusal to be a passive observer. He looked to Rello. "You said strength comes in many forms." Rello gave the faintest nod. "Then find yours." Imad moved to the nearest auxiliary control console, its interface glowing in simplified emergency mode. He linked his suit's sensory feed into the station's internal vibration sensors, creating a hybrid map of sound and tremor. "I can track the boarders," he told the nearest security officer. "Their boots, their movement patterns, they're heavier than human." The officer didn't question it. "Feed it to us." Imad relayed their positions in real time. Security teams adjusted routes, intercepting the boarders in tight choke points. The fighting was brutal, blaster fire echoing through the corridors, the thump of impacts carrying even through Imad's suit. Within minutes, the last boarding party was either dead or captured. The battle outside was shifting again. With their boarding attempt repelled and another destroyer lost, the pursuit began to pull back. "They're retreating," Tactical confirmed. Lucas didn't smile this time. "They'll be back. But they won't forget what happened here." Imad sat back in his cradle, heart pounding, suit sensors still buzzing with residual vibrations from every corner of the station. He had acted, not fought, not killed, but acted, and it had mattered. He understood now, humanity didn't expect their allies to be like them. They expected them to contribute as they were. The station was quieter now, though the air still carried the scent of scorched alloy and overheated systems. Crews worked through the night cycle, repairing hull breaches, rewiring power conduits, and sealing bulkheads where pursuit boarding craft had gouged the walls. Imad moved through the corridors without an escort this time. The crew recognized him now, not as a visiting diplomat, but as someone who had stood with them when the fight came inside their walls. They nodded in greeting, some adding a brief "ambassador" as they passed. It was subtle, but he felt it. Respect. He found Rello in the secondary comm center, overseeing the long-range transmission to the Galactic Council. The ambassador's tone was calm, but there was no mistaking the steel underneath. "The Persug have twice violated treaty space," Rello was saying. Once could be dismissed as opportunistic. Twice is an intentional campaign. A reply came back after a pause. Your evidence is clear, but the Council sees no strategic justification for intervention. Your defense capability is limited. Recommend reassessing your commitments. It was a polite way of saying, you're on your own. Rello cut the channel without another word. They won't help, he said to Imad. No surprise there. Imad's skin darkened in a slow ripple of frustration. And yet humanity still will. Yes, Rello said simply. Because our measure of worth isn't theirs. The command center was running on reduced lighting to conserve power, but the tension was still there, an undercurrent of readiness, even in the lull. Lucas was at the central table, reviewing tactical recordings from the second battle. He gestured for Imad to join him. You tracked their boarding teams, he said. Fed our security with precise movement updates. That saved lives. I did only what I could, Imad replied. That's exactly the point, Lucas said. We don't expect allies to fight like us. We expect them to matter in the fight. You did. Imad hesitated. When I first came here, I believed my mission was to learn why you kept our alliance when others didn't. I thought perhaps it was charity. Or a tactical quirk. And now? Lucas asked. Now I see it's something far more dangerous to your enemies, Imad said slowly. You build alliances the way you fight. You turn weaknesses into strengths, not by ignoring them, but by making them part of the plan. Lucas's mouth quirked into a small smile. Then you've learned the right lesson. Later, Imad walked the outer observation deck alone. The repaired shield grid shimmered faintly against the black of space. Beyond it, the wreckage of Persug's ships drifted in slow arcs, tiny beacons flashing on pieces that would be salvaged. The stars beyond felt closer than before, as if he could reach out through the glass and touch them. His people had always seen space as something to hide from, too cold, too empty, too hostile. Now he understood it differently. It was hostile, yes. But it was also shared. Rello's footsteps were soft on the deck. You're thinking about home, he said. Yes. About what I will tell them. You'll tell them the Council is blind? I'll tell them the Council's blindness doesn't matter, Imad said. His skin shifted into the deep, steady tones of conviction. Because we are not abandoned. Humanity remains. Rello stood beside him, watching the stars. And when the Persug come again? They will, Imad said. But when they do, they will find us standing together. The next day, the surviving crew gathered in the central concourse for a brief ceremony, not formal, just a recognition of what they had endured. Names of the fallen were read aloud. Injured crew were applauded as they entered. Salvage teams returned carrying parts stripped from the enemy ships, trophies that would be rebuilt into something useful. Lucas addressed them from the balcony. The Council says we should pick our fights more carefully. That we should drop commitments that don't serve our immediate interest. The Persug think they can make us afraid enough to do just that. They're wrong. We don't abandon our own. The cheers that followed were fierce, defiant. Imad felt them in his bones, through the deck, through the very air. When the noise died down, Lucas looked toward him. Ambassador Imad of the Austrians, your people stood with us, too. Make no mistake. This wasn't a human victory alone. Imad moved forward, his environmental suit catching the light. It is true we fought differently, he said, his translator sending his words through the chamber. Some of us pressed wounds closed instead of firing weapons. Some of us tracked the enemy through bulkheads instead of piloting ships. But all of us, human and Austrian, chose to stand. And that choice is victory. The applause this time was softer, but no less powerful. It wasn't celebration, it was acknowledgement. Hours later, Lucas, Rello, and Imad stood in the briefing room again. The room where his mission had begun. It looked the same, but felt entirely different. I will return home, Imad said. I will tell my people what I have seen here. Not just the fighting, but the why behind it. And I will tell them this: humanity did not save us because we were strong. They saved us because they could see how we might be strong together. Rello inclined his head. And if they believe you? Then next time the Persug come, they will not find Austrians waiting for rescue. They will find allies. Lucas extended his hand. The gesture was now familiar to Imad. He placed his manipulator into the human's grasp. You understand now, Lucas said. We don't build alliances for convenience. We build them for the day when the fight is hardest, and the ones who stand beside you are the ones who count. Imad's skin shifted into the deep blue of certainty. Then I count myself among them. When his transport departed Delta 7, Imad stood at the viewport of his small cabin, watching the human station fade into a point of light. Around it, patrol craft moved like silent guardians, their hulls marked by the same scars the station bore. It struck him that scars were not just damage. They were proof of survival, proof of battles faced and endured. His people feared scars, but perhaps it was time they learned to see them as the humans did. The stars stretched out ahead, and Imad felt no urge to hide from them. Somewhere out there, the Persug were regrouping. The council would continue to look the other way. But humanity would still be there. And now, so would the Austrians. For the first time in many cycles, he felt something deep in his core. Not safety, no, that was never guaranteed. But belonging. And that, he realized, might be the strongest shield of all.